Winter arrived in the medieval world not as a quiet season of rest, but as an enemy. It crept in slowly, shortening days, hardening soil, stiffening joints, and testing every fragile system that kept people alive. For peasants, artisans, servants, and even minor nobles, winter labour was not optional. Work did not stop because cold could kill just as easily as hunger. In many ways, winter was the most dangerous working season of all because it combined exhaustion, exposure, and scarcity into one long struggle that lasted for months. The medieval year revolved around agriculture, but winter did not mean idleness. Fields might be frozen, yet survival work intensified. People laboured to prepare food, maintain shelter, care for animals and secure fuel. Every task was heavier in the cold. Fingers went numb, tools slipped from stiff hands, and breath burned the lungs. Without modern insulation, heating, or proper winter clothing, even simple chores became acts of endurance. Clothing offered little protection. Most peasants owned 1 or 2 sets of garments at most, usually made of coarse wool or rough linen. Wool could trap warmth when dry, but it became heavy and useless when wet. Shoes were thin leather or wooden clogs stuffed with straw. Gloves were rare. Hats, if worn, were simple and poorly fitted. When snow or freezing rain soaked these clothes, workers had no spare garments to change into. They worked wet, and they slept wet. Winter mornings began in darkness. Before dawn, labourers rose from straw beds inside smoke-filled huts, where fires had often gone out during the night to save fuel. Frost formed on interior walls. Breath was visible indoors. The first task was often relighting the fire, a critical job that could decide whether the household stayed alive. Gathering kindling, blowing embers back to life, and coaxing flames with numb fingers was itself a form of labour. Wood was life, and winter labour revolved around it. Men, women, and children spent endless hours cutting, splitting, hauling, and rationing firewood. Forest access was tightly controlled by lords, making fuel collection risky. Illegal wood gathering could result in fines, beatings, or worse. Yet families still took the risk, because without firewood, winter meant death. Carrying heavy logs through snow while wearing inadequate clothing was brutal work that strained muscles and broke backs. Animal care did not pause for winter. Livestock needed feeding, watering, cleaning, and protection from cold. Barns were drafty and dark. Ice had to be broken daily on water troughs. Hay stored during summer now had to be carefully rationed, since animals that died from starvation or exposure meant the loss of milk, meat, labour, and wealth. Many peasants shared living space with animals to preserve heat, breathing air thick with dung and ammonia. Women carried an especially heavy burden during winter labour. In addition to outdoor tasks, they handled indoor work that never ended. Grain had to be ground by hand, a slow and exhausting process that wore down joints and teeth. Food preservation was constant, salting meat, drying vegetables, checking stores for rot or pests. Clothing had to be mended repeatedly, since cold and labour tore fabric apart faster than it could be replaced.
Water collection became a daily challenge. Wells froze, streams iced over. Women and children often hacked through ice to reach water, risking slips that could mean injury or death. Carrying heavy buckets through snow on uneven paths was dangerous, especially for the elderly. A broken leg in winter was often a death sentence. Artisans faced their own winter hardships. Blacksmiths worked in freezing forges where metal burned the skin, while the air froze sweat instantly. Masons and carpenters continued construction when possible, handling stone and wood so cold it numbed hands within minutes. Pain was constant, but stopping work meant losing wages or falling behind obligations owed to a lord or guild. Road maintenance was another form of winter labour. Snow and ice made travel dangerous, but roads still needed clearing for trade, military movement and communication. Peasants were often forced into unpaid labour to clear paths, shovel snow, or repair bridges weakened by ice. These duties were demanded regardless of weather, health, or personal loss. The cold affected the body in relentless ways. Frostbite was common. Fingers, toes, ears, and noses turned white and numb, then blackened as tissue died. Medieval medicine had no real treatment. Infections followed easily. Gangrene meant slow death or amputation without anaesthesia. Many workers simply lost digits and continued working until they could no longer function. Nutrition worsened in winter, making labour even harder. Diets shrank to bread, thin porridge, dried peas, and whatever preserved food remained. Fresh vegetables were gone. Meat was rare unless slaughtered earlier and successfully preserved. Malnutrition weakened immune systems, making people more vulnerable to cold-related illnesses like pneumonia. Sleep offered little relief. Houses were poorly insulated, with gaps in walls and roofs. Snow drifted inside. Fires were kept small to conserve fuel, allowing cold to seep in. People slept fully clothed, often huddled together. Even then, many woke shivering. Rest was shallow and broken. Yet the workday resumed at dawn.
Psychologically, winter labour crushed morale. Darkness lasted longer each day. Death became common. Neighbours, children, elders slipping away quietly from cold or illness. There were no safety nets, no winter holidays of rest for the poor. Faith offered explanations, but not warmth. Many believed suffering was a test or punishment, which made endurance a moral duty. Storms brought terror. Blizzards isolated villages. Roofs collapsed under snow. People lost in whiteouts froze within minutes. After storms, labour increased, clearing paths, rescuing animals, repairing damage. These tasks were performed while exhausted and underfed, compounding risk. For serfs, winter labour was enforced by obligation. Lords demanded rents and services regardless of season. Failure meant punishment. Peasants worked not only for survival, but under constant pressure to meet feudal demands. The cold did not soften authority. Children were not spared. From a young age, they hauled water, gathered fuel, tended animals, and assisted in workshops. Small bodies suffered greatly in cold. Many children died in winter before reaching adulthood, their labour ending before their lives truly began. Despite everything, people endured. They developed routines, shared warmth, and relied on communal effort. Villages survived because everyone worked, even while freezing. Winter labour was not heroic in the modern sense. It was relentless, anonymous, and unavoidable. By the time spring arrived, survivors emerged thinner, weaker, and scarred. Some were missing fingers. Some were missing family members. Winter labour had taken its toll, as it did every year. In the medieval world, working while freezing was not an exception. It was the price of staying alive. Those who could not pay it disappeared quietly into the snow.